Hey, coaches. It's Coach Matt Dennis. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking about tryouts. I get a lot of emails about tryouts this time of year, as I should, because the season is about to start for almost all of us. I get a middle school, freshmen, JV, varsity coaches, all asking the same thing in a different way because their level is a slightly different. So I'm going to try to hit on as many of them as I can in the next few. A lot of resources inside the coaching lab. So if you're a member of that, you're going to be able to go in and get these resources. If you are not a member, feel free to sign up and you'll have access to all these resources. But you're going to have all the great information either way. So whether you have the resources, you come up with your own, or you just decide to put some pencil to paper, either way, you're going to get the information that you need. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to share my screen real quick with you. If you are watching this, then this will help out quite a bit. If you don't happen to be watching it, but you are listening to it, I'll try to explain it the best that I can here. All right. So we kind of see what I'm working with here in terms of resources that I'm going to be sharing with you. And this is a great, way to just get ideas. More than anything, I just want to throw a bunch of stuff out there. Some of it's going to work for you. Some of it's not, depending on your situation. So I guess the first thing to do, let's break down real quick. How many kids do you have? So are you dealing with, 12 or 13 players coming out for one team? There's not going to be many cuts. And we'll talk a little bit about that in one of these resources. Or are you dealing with 30 kids where you really got to get this thing narrowed down? Either way, it's the beginning of the season. You want to start off on the right foot. So most of what I'm going to talk about is going to deal with having to make cuts. So you keep 12 and you have multiple players. Maybe it's 4 or 5, maybe it's 15 kids that you're going to have to let go. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about both of those. But I know I've had years at the varsity level. What I get is what I get in a small school. But then I've had years where 22, 23 players show up and I can't keep that many. So it does ebb and flow a little bit with where you're at, where your program's at, and just the class that might be coming through. All right. The first sheet I'm going to give you has a little bit of, I guess, a philosophy, maybe more than anything. We don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is a worksheet to get you to understand the breakdown of the tryouts. Now, our goal is to determine who the best players are going to be. Now, it's pretty easy with what we call the eye test, that you're going to be able to find your top 2, 3, maybe even 5 players that you have, which is great. But it's number 6 through 12 that gets hard to kind of figure out. Who should you keep? Who shouldn't you keep? So we want to have a good plan in place. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I am just going to point out a few things. I give you some space here in order just to put some thoughts down, and I give you ideas as well. But breakdown drills, okay? We're going to be looking at different areas, dribbling, shooting, passing, that kind of thing. And we need to be able to measure those. So we need to come up with drills that we can measure. How many layups did they make? How many shots did they make? How many line touches in a conditioning drill did they make? How many lane shuffles maybe. And not that that's going to decide everything we do, but what it does is when you measure things, players get after it harder. So even if you aren't making a lot of cuts, you want your kids to go hard. And if they know they have to record their score, they're being evaluated on it, they're going to go harder. So I encourage you to do that. Now, it can be part of your evaluation process and who you're going to keep and who you're going to cut. But no matter what, cutting or not, I encourage you to have drills that are measurable, a winner or a loser, a number of makes, a number of misses, whatever it is that you want to measure there. So we got some different ideas in there. We also want to look at situations because not all players, they can go through the drills and they can do everything, but they can't translate it onto the court. Vice versa. You got a kid who has decent skills, maybe not the best, but really just is a savvy player, can field the game, makes passes that you wouldn't expect, knows where to be on the defensive end. So they have the intangibles that it's hard to coach. They dive on the floor for things like that. So put them in competitive environments that are not just drill based, but they have a chance to show their skill and understanding. So things like 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 3-on-4, 4-on-5, 5-on-5, all of those things are going to be beneficial for us. And then lastly, looking at their athleticism. This always helps. You get the best out of the athletes when you can see them compete against each other. And again, it's another place to kind of separate people. So I love the 1-minute full court dribbling drill that you see up there. It's where you start on one end line. You're going to dribble for a minute straight. and you're going to dribble back and forth end line to end line and see how many touches you get. So every time you hit one of the end lines, it counts as one. Our players tend to be in that 8.5 to 9-ish category. So how do I get to 8.5? Well, they hit the full court or the end line 8 times, and they got halfway to the other end line when the buzzer went off. Now, what this does for me is a couple things. It tells me what kind of condition my kids are coming in. It tells me who's been doing something to stay in shape, whether it's another sport or they're out running on their own, and who hasn't done anything at all. So it's a great evaluation tool just from a conditioning standpoint. Not the only one, but it's one that we like to use. We also come back and revisit this. So hopefully our players over the course of the season are getting in better and better shape. That this test would help us, because we started at 8.5, and then we're at 8 3/4, and then we're at 9 1/4, 9.5. We get a little bit farther with the better shape we get in. All right. And then last is breaking down your offense and defense into your offense and defensive understanding, giving them a goal and having them try to accomplish it. So if we're looking at the offensive side of things, we're going to be asking them to do a certain part of our offense, a pick and roll, or we're going to, our offensive break. Start it by teaching it on air, so there's no defense at all, and then transition into playing against a defense, so they can see once they get it, because every player, the first time they see something or do something, they're not going to be good at it. Give them a few reps on air, and then let's put them against the defense and see how we adjust. Who can adjust quickly, may not be perfect, but quickly, and who can't. That's going to tell us a lot as well. Defensively is the same thing. We're going to give them a defensive shell drill maybe. We're going to ask them to jump in front of the cutters, do it kind of in a 50% manner, and then all of a sudden we're going to do it live, and we're going to see who can adjust to it. But that puts them in a competition where they have to perform a specific task you've just taught them. Okay. After we've done all of this, at the end of practice, I like to go 5-on-5. Now, the reason I don't go 5-on-5 earlier is because the 5-on-5 highlights the best players, and they dominate the ball. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to know who the best players are in tryouts. We know that. We need to know who 6 through 12 are going to be, or 4 through 12 are going to be. So we need to see them play 5-on-5, obviously, but our best players might sit out a little bit in this at this time, or we may ask them, hey, you come down, facilitate the offense, but you're not going to be running the show. You're not going to be shooting it all the time, that kind of thing, because I need to evaluate some of these other players. But 3-on-3, 4-on-4, we're going to see a lot more touches, a lot more actions. 5-on-5, yep, we need to see it. Yeah, can they run a play? Can they play the defense? Certainly a good thing, but not where our best players is going to be scoring all the points, because that doesn't help us at this point. All right, so that's a breakdown of things just to get you thinking about things. It's not the only thing, but it certainly helps out. So let's go ahead and jump back to our resources, and I'll move through these a little bit quicker here. Tryouts. So if you are going to be making cuts, here's some tryouts that you're going to want to be maybe taking a look at. These tryout slides, and this literally is, what I have done in my tryouts. So I'm evaluating players on their skill, their athleticism, their basketball IQ. This is when I have to make cuts. So I've got everything kind of spelled out here, and tryouts are a little bit different in terms of that practice plan, because I don't always know who's going to show up, who signed up and didn't show up. I have an idea of how many kids I'll have, but I never know exactly how many are going to be in there. So we've got our warm-ups in here, and we've got our shooting. So we do 3-minute shooting. We got our free throws in here that we're doing. Everything is mapped out. I gave this to my assistant coaches. That way they know exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to record all of our scores. So that's going to help. We're going to know who our 3-point shooters are, our better free throw shooters are, depending on the drill. And we're going to do some different king of the court style stuff. Who are our best 1-on-1 players, the best 2-on-2 players? And if you've never done king of the court, it's a great way to get everybody involved, but your winners basically are moving up the ladder and your losers are moving down the ladder. So if you have 6 hoops, you start them all off together, make one hoop the championship hoop. And then as players win, they're all going to move to the right. The champion at the championship hoop, so whoever was lucky enough to get there to start, when they win, they stay where they're at. All of your losers are going to go to the left. So they're going to actually move down, and they'll be playing somebody new, but we're going to do this for several minutes, 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes, 1-on-1 and 2-on-2. And we're going to see who works their way up into the championship court and who doesn't. It's pretty interesting to see sometimes. All right. So we've got some 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 actions. And then, like I said, we get into that 5-on-5 action as well. So we're evaluating this entire time. We're writing down team scores, we're writing down shots made, we're writing down line touches, whatever it is, all of that stuff. And then at the end here, we get a little conditioning and a little bit of stretching and stuff in. But this is the first day. I'm not getting a whole lot of team stuff done when I have to make cuts. I'm just getting evaluation, and we do make cuts the first day. So that very first day, if we see some kids who just aren't going to cut it, unfortunately, we call them in the office and we do cut them. The second day, there's kids we want to see again, but we'll make a second round of cuts the second day. And usually our team is kind of decided by that time, but not always. So there is a third day. And this, for me, are those seniors who came out. I want to talk to them and let them know where they stand in the program. It's a lot of time to devote to basketball. You're not going to get a lot of playing time. So seniors who are in that boat, I like to have a conversation with them on Tuesday, the second day maybe, and on Wednesday they come in and let me know their decision. If they choose to stay with the team, then we talk about that and we have a practice. If they choose to not stay with the team, then we kind of go our separate ways at that point. But that's why I keep the third day in there, because I want that kid to have an opportunity to talk to their parents. I'm big on communication in my program. Talk to your parents, see if this is something you really want to devote to. Some players love being a part of the team. They just want to do anything they can, and I don't mind having them, even the seniors. Other players, it is definitely more, they want to work. They want to play another sport. They go to wrestling or something, or swimming. Totally fine with me. There's no hard feelings. At least I had the opportunity to make that choice. All right. So we won't go over slide 2. It's a lot of the same of slide 1, which I just showed you. We're recording those same scores again. We might be in a little different way. I might have a defender on their three-point shots instead of them just shooting open three-pointers. So we could be changing some things, but I'm recording it. I did have one year where a player I thought was going to be on the team came in and scored. He hadn't done anything all summer, all fall, and he scored in the bottom quarter of three-point shooting, the bottom quarter of free throws, conditioning. He was at the bottom of the list. Everything we measured, he was at the bottom of the list for. And ultimately, we didn't end up keeping him. So I have used that information for cuts. I don't 100% just decide who's at the top and the bottom that way. But that player, unfortunately, there are other guys who are ready to go, and he missed out on that opportunity. All right, what about when there's no cuts? This is what a practice plan is going to look a lot different here. So this is my typical practice plan for the day, or for any day, I should say. And what we have here is just, we've got some warm-up drills, but we're getting more into what we're doing. This is a regular team practice. If I only have 12 players or 13 players, I'm not going to spend a ton of time doing all the evaluation stuff. I still want to measure things, but I'm not evaluating to cut. I'm evaluating to start a leaderboard in practices. So we're going to create that leaderboard and be able to give it out to our players as the course of the season goes on. So here we are looking at, kind of what we're going to get into in our offense and our defense. So what you see there is some 5-on-0 and 5-on-5. We're going to teach it 5-on-0 on air. And then we are going to go ahead and get going 5-on-5. Get my mouse here. All right, same thing with our offensive break. We get into some 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 work. But we're teaching the things we want to do in our program. We're not spending time just seeing who can do it. These are the players I have. So we're going right after it. We're doing a lot of teaching, a lot of coaching, rather than a sit back, explain it once, and then let's see them do it. All right, now if I had 25, 30 kids, I'd go back to that other practice plan I just showed you on the slides there. So looks a lot different, but we also keep it short. You can see 103 minutes. We don't go the 120. That gives me time. A lot of times what we do at the end is let the players go 5-on-5. I start calling kids in one-on-one to talk to them. So I leave myself some time where I know I won't be in the gym. An assistant coach will. So the practice probably went a little bit longer than 103 minutes, but that's really where I was in the gym. And then I handed it over to an assistant to run some 5-on-5 stuff while I was gone, or to do some conditioning, that kind of thing. All right, let's take a look here at some evaluation sheets. Now, there's 3 of them here that I want to hit really quick. The player self-evaluation. This is one that you hand it to your senior, or if you have 13 or 14 kids, you're going to cut 1 or 2. They may cut themselves, and that's okay. This prospect checklist is actually, I've adapted it from another coach. I don't remember who I got it to, but I really like this idea. And it kind of lets them internalize things a little bit. Say, do I really want, if I'm not going to play a lot, do I want to give up this time? So kind of like that conversation I was having with the seniors earlier. This one here is, let's read that first one. I'd be willing to accept the role on the team, even if there's only a 0 to 25% chance I'll play in a game. And if I'm not going to, it's 0 to 25, I'm not playing very much. Do I want to devote that time? If I only get to play 50% of the time, I'm not a main person who's going to be out there the entire game. Do I want to? So they have to do a little self-reflection and see where they're at. So this is something that really helps. Also ask them to talk to their parents about it. Let them know, hey, parent, this is where they're at. Now, I'm not a coach that says you're pigeonholed into this one area. You can never play anymore. You'll never get any better. No, but the fact is, if it's a player who's number 11 and 12, we're not going to play probably more than 10 players in most games unless it's really big blow in our favor or against us. And really we'll probably narrow it to about our top 8 or 9 players that are going to get some kind of decent playing time. So it's okay to be honest with your kids about it. If I were a middle school coach, and I have middle school students that are players of my own, middle school kids of my own, I do think everybody deserves a chance to play. I don't think that they have hit their stride. I don't think they've all hit puberty yet. I think players can change quite a bit from middle school to high school. So I wouldn't be having this conversation with a middle school student in the same way. Now, some players may be the 11th and 12th, and having them understand that they may not play as much, but they are going to get to play. Where when you get to the JV and the varsity, you're not going to play as much, and you may not even get on the floor. A little bit different on the situation. All right, so I love that for the chance for kids to reflect and make a decision. I have had players who have done that, and they come back and say, "Coach, I appreciate it, but decide not to play this year." And I didn't have to cut them. And there's nothing more than I hate than cuts in basketball. There's 2 times of the year that I absolutely do not like being a coach. One is the day I have to cut a player, and the second is when our season ends. There's only one team that goes on in our level and wins the whole thing. So those are the 2 times that is the toughest to be the coach, in my opinion. All right. Evaluation sheet. So this is a group evaluation sheet. This is something that I use when there's a lot of players. It helps me evaluate and help my assistant coaches. I'll give one to each assistant coach, and I'll say, hey, all right, you're going to watch these top 5 players. Next person, you watch these top 5. I'll take the next 5, or whatever the makeup is. That way we are all kind of evaluating a different chunk of people. And then we all decide if there's a person that we want to let go that first day. On the second day, we might trade evaluation sheets, so we all get a chance to evaluate somebody different. So it depends on the assistants you have. You certainly can do it yourself, but it is easier with multiple sets of eyes. So we're recording shots, 3-pointers, free throws, layups. We're kind of grading them on where they are in their perimeter concepts, post concepts, defensive concepts, that kind of thing. It's a little bit subjective there, but at least you're having something to go off of so that you can talk with the other coaches about it. You try to remember 20 kids over the last 2 hours, and you're going to break down everything. No, it's not going to happen. You need to do this in real time. So we're going to record it in real time, make some notes possibly, and then we're going to talk about it, have a chance for us to break it down and see what we want to do on day 2. If there's only a couple of kids to cut, and sometimes I've done this when there's been 10 or 12 kids to cut, depends how much time you have, we do a individual player evaluation. The reason I like to have this evaluation is if a parent comes in, and we know parents are involved with middle school and high school athletes. When I was at the college level, never worried about it. But middle school and high school, yep, we're going to get a call from a parent. The AD is going to get a call. The principal is going to get a call. Have something on paper as to why they were cut and what they could do different if they're coming back next year, what they need to work on. It's going to save you a huge headache. Now, if nobody asks for it, yep, you took a few minutes and you didn't have to use it. But if they ask for it, you're certainly going to be glad that you have it. So basic stuff: what team are they on? What's their height? Where do you rate them in terms of skill? Where was their shooting scores? So take that off the other sheet. If you did it on the big sheet, take it and transfer it over here. Where were their concepts? Athleticism is really any test that you did for conditioning or quickness or vertical jump, anything like that. Intangibles, in terms of sportsmanship, coachability, effort, most kids score pretty high on that in a tryout, which is good, but not all of them do. And then their strengths, weaknesses, and finally your comments. So every player does something well. So let them know what they did a good job of. So when I meet with a player, I'm pull this out and I'll say, hey, these are areas that you did good in. Your weaknesses, here's areas you need to improve on if you're going to make the team next year. And then my overall comments about them. And most of the time, actually all of the time, I'm not cutting a kid because I don't like the kid. I'm sure we have that at times, but I have to evaluate them on their basketball ability first. And then obviously what type of person they are, how coachable they are. I don't always know that going into a tryout. So that can be a little bit difficult for me to assess since I'm not teaching at the same school that I'm coaching at. Other coaches can help with that a little bit if they're in the school, but comments about, just where you'd like to see them go or what their strengths are, maybe some areas or some avenues that they could look into. I've had some kids come out and I'd say, man, you'd be a great wrestler. Basketball isn't your thing, but wrestling would be phenomenal for you. And they've taken me up on it and they go and they wrestle. Some don't. That's okay. But there are at least some comments we have just to try to encourage them. All right. So those are the evaluation sheets that you can use. You take what you want, coach. Pick and choose what works best for you. A couple of other concepts just to kind of keep in mind. Scaffold your drills. Do them on air. Do them against a defender. Do them in a small-sided game, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, then 5-on-5. You build up so you can see where every player is at. Now, some of them you're going to know right away they can't perform the skill, so going to 2-on-2, 3-on-3 doesn't make any sense. For others, they're much closer. They have the drill skill, but when they get into the game situations, that's where they falter. Well, we need to see them in game situations. So it's not made perfect for everybody every time, but it is made perfect in the sense that you get to evaluate kids where they're at by scaffolding it. Your practice shot tracker, give this to your assistant coach. Have them keep track of shots in practice. So put your players' names on here. You shoot free throws up at the top, put 10 free throws, and then you list how many they made out of 10. If you do that, 3 times in practice, or you do the mic and drill, whatever you want to put in there is fine. But you record their scores. Have your assistant coach, when that player's done, run over to your assistant and have them report the score real quick. Or if you want your assistant to walk hoop to hoop, they can get the scores as maybe somebody's rebounding for somebody else. They can say, yeah, I hit 8 out of 10, coach. And they just mark it down. So a great way to do it. Harder to do when you have more kids, but this is a form that we would use all season long because we're going to create a leaderboard. So we're going to take from the day one and keep going with it. And if you missed last week's Fast Break Friday, I talked about the leaderboard. It's inside the coaching lab. You can get access to it. But if you have any questions on that, feel free to send me an email and I can explain that a little bit more. And then the last thing I have for you, coach, are different drills. Now, I'm going to only open up one of these just so that you can see them, but here's my small-sided games and drills ebook. This is alongside the coaching lab too, so if you're like, man, what ideas do I have? What drill should I use? I get coaches ask that all the time, and I could give every coach a whole list of drills, but you really need to pick them yourself. How much gym space do you have? How many hoops are you going to have? How many players are you going to have? What do you feel comfortable with the level of player you're at? Are they learning the basics of a layup, or do they know a layup and they need to be competing against each other? Those are all things that go into it. So it's always hard to say what drills to use because I don't know your level and your players the way that you do. But you can see there's lots of different types of drills. You wouldn't use them all, but there's lots of types of drills that you can use, and they're explained in here in different ways. But there's really 3 different packets that I have that I would encourage you to look at for drills. Some of them are duplicates because they work in multiple things. But what you have here is you have your small side games and drills, your 23 shooting games, and your 70 basketball drills to use. On top of that, you have the drill vault that has several hundred drills in it for you to choose from, with videos on most of them and diagrams as well. So all of that at your fingertips sometimes can be a little overwhelming, and I certainly can pare it down, but these are the resources that are available inside the coaching lab. You can print them, you can watch them, you can download them, take them with you to practice and use them so that you can evaluate your players the best way possible. So lots of resources here, pick and choose what works for you, coach. So you have a great tryout. All right. That was it for our Fast Break Friday. If you have specific questions about things, feel free to send me an email at matt@coachmattdennis.com, or join the coaching lab if you're not a member already. Access all these resources. If you are a member, I hope to see you inside. Okay, I'll talk to you later.